this video, we're going to take a look at adding and subtracting decimals. So decimals can be added and subtracted just like whole numbers. The first thing you need to do is line up the numbers based on their place value. And in doing this, that will also line up the decimal. So the big thing in adding and subtracting decimals is make sure that you line up the decimals. If you have the decimals lined up, then everything else will be good to go. Then we're going to estimate and we're going to add or subtract, and then we're going to check to make sure that what we've done is correct. So the first thing here we have is 165 and 3 tenths plus 21 and 9 tenths. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to estimate. And so I'm going to take my first number here and I'm going to estimate that to 170. And I'm going to take my second number here and I'm going to estimate or round that to 20. And again, we want to estimate reasonable numbers and we want to make sure that our estimate is something that we can figure out quickly in our head. So when I look at this, I have 170 plus 20, and that is going to equal 190. So now I'm going to go and solve my problem here. So I have 165 and 3 tenths, and then I have 21 and 9 tenths. And again, notice that my decimals are lined up, and so everything else is lined up. And then I'm going to add these two together. I'm going to start here with 3 plus 9, and that gives me a total of 12. And so then I carry my 1, and then I have 5 plus 1, which is 6, plus 1 more is 7. 6 plus 2 is 8, and then 1 plus nothing here would be 1. And then I bring my decimal straight down, and I have 187 and 2 tenths. Now, if I look at my answer here and I look at my estimate, they are very close. So I feel pretty confident about my answer. But what we're going to do here is we're going to go through and we're going to check our answer. So I'm going to take the answer that I have here, 187 and 2 tenths, and I'm going to subtract. So I'm going to go backwards and I'm going to subtract this amount from it. So 21 and 9 tenths. So again, notice my decimals are lined up. So now when I subtract, I'm going to have to do some borrowing. And so here I have would be a 6, and I'm going to borrow 10 from there. So that makes this 12. 12 minus 9 is 3. 6 minus 1 is 5. 8 minus 2 is 6. And 1 minus nothing here would be 1. Bring my decimal straight down. And I have 165 and 3 tenths. So if you notice this and you notice here are the same numbers. So that means that I know that this 187 and 2 tenths is the correct answer. So we're going to do the same thing here. So we're going to start off and we're going to estimate. And so I'm going to estimate this to 2,500. And notice I'm subtracting this time. I want to make sure that I pay attention to that. And then I'm going to round my other number to 60. And so I know that 2,500 minus 60 is going to give me 2,440. So now I'm going to go ahead and solve this. So I have 2,453. Well, notice I don't have a decimal in it because it's a whole number. Well, from previous work, we know that our decimal is right here with whole numbers. So when I line up my decimal here, when I'm subtracting, I'm going to have 61 and then my decimal and then 1 and 8. Well, since I'm subtracting here, I am going to have to put zeros here to hold the places, and I'm going to need those when I subtract. So when I start subtracting, I look at my numbers and I have 0 and I take away 8. Well, that's going to give me a negative amount. So I'm going to have to borrow. Well, I can't borrow from the number right to the left because that's also a 0. So I have to go to the 3. Borrow from the 3, that makes that a 2. Remember, I'm borrowing a group of 10. So 10 plus 0 is 10. But again, I need that farthest to the right 0 to have some more value to it so I can subtract the 8. So I'm going to borrow from the 10, make that a 9, and then make this a 10. So now I can subtract. 10 minus 8 is 2. 9 minus 1 is 8. Bring down my decimal. 2 minus 1 is 1. Well, now again, my 5 is less than my 6, so I'm going to have to borrow. Make this a 3. This would be 15. 15 minus 6 is 9. 3 minus nothing would be 3. And then 2 minus nothing would be 2. So right now I'm feeling pretty good with my answer because if I notice here and I look at my estimate, it is very reasonable. They fit, they're very close to each other. But again, I'm going to check this. So I'm going to take my answer of 2,391 and 82 hundredths, and I'm going to work backwards. So this time I'm going to add, and again, I'm going to add this amount to it. So I'd have 61 and 18 hundredths. So 2 and 8 is 10. Carry my 1. 8 plus 1 is 9. Plus 1 more is another 10. Carry my 1. Bring down my decimal here. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. 9 plus 6 is 15. Carry my 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. And 2 plus 0 is 2. And so I end up with 2,453. And again, because these are zeros, I wouldn't necessarily need them. And if you notice, this is the same as this. And so that I know my answer here is the correct answer. If I start on this one, I'm going to estimate again. And I'm going to estimate this one to 1,700. And again, it's subtraction. So I subtract. And I'm going to estimate this to 200. And 1,700 minus 200 gives me 1,500. And I'm going to solve it. And so I have 1,678 and 3 tenths minus 205 and 14 hundredths. Well, again, I need a number here, so I'm going to put that in with a 0. And now I'm going to subtract. So again, looking at the number here, 0 is less than 4. So I'm going to have to borrow, make this a 2, make this a 10. 10 minus 4 is 6. 2 minus 1 is 1. Bring my decimal down. 8 minus 5 is 3. 7 minus 0 is 7. 6 minus 2 is 4. And 1 minus 0 is 1. And again, if I look at this amount here and I look at my estimate, they are very close. So this seems to be a very reasonable answer. But again, I'm going to go through and I'm going to check it just to make sure. So I have 1,473 and 16 hundredths. And I'm working backwards to check it. So I'm going to add, and I'm going to add this amount to it. So I have 205 and 14 hundredths. So as I go through and add, 6 plus 4 is 10. Carry my 1. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. Bring down my decimal. 3 plus 5 is 8. 7 plus 0 is 7. 4 plus 2 is 6. and 1 plus nothing is 1. So I have 1,678 and 30 hundredths. But again, I don't necessarily need that zero. And if we notice here and here, exactly the same number. And so I know that this answer is my correct answer. Have an addition problem here. So we're going to estimate that. And I'm going to estimate the first number here to be 2, and then addition. And I'm going to estimate my next number to be 350. So I add those two together, I get 352. Now we'll go ahead and solve it. Now, it probably would look a little odd to have this number first and this number second. So, because it's addition and I'm just combining them together, I can flip the order around. So, I'm going to start with 354 and 6 tenths plus my 1 and 605 thousandths. Again, I need some zeros here for placeholders. And so I add them together. And so I have 0 plus 5 is 5. 0 plus 0 is 0. 6 plus 6 is 12. Carry my 1. And bring my decimal down here. 4 plus 1 is 5. Plus 1 is 6. 5 and nothing would be 5. 3 and nothing would be 3. So I end up with 356 and 205 thousandths. And again, if I look here at this number and I look here at this number, they are very close. So I feel that my answer is very reasonable. But again, I'm going to check this to make sure that it is the correct answer. So I'll start with my number here. And because I'm adding, this time I'm going to subtract. And I'm going to subtract this amount from it. And so here we will subtract. And if I look, I've got 5 minus 5, which would be 0. 0 minus 0 would be 0. Now 2 is smaller than 6, so I'm going to have to borrow. Make this a 5. We would make this a 12. 12 minus 6 is 6. Bring down my decimal. 5 minus 1 is 4. 5 minus nothing would be 5. 3 minus nothing would be 3. And again, I don't necessarily need these zeros. So here, this answer is very similar to this answer since I flipped them around. And so I know that my answer here is the correct answer for this addition problem.